Welcome back, boxing fans, to another great show with Sean on boxing. So, obviously, this past weekend, we had a great weekend of fights, a shitload of boxing, a great way to end January and lead into February. Before we start everything, let's just look at what we can expect in February. Obviously, we have some big fight cards coming around then as well. So, just let me check this out. Boxing schedule, ESPN. So let's just check this boxing schedule for February. So obviously, there's a big card from DAZN, another pay-per-view, which is exactly what we've all been asking for. The Mario Barros Ryan Garcia fight. I hope Mario Barros knocks Ryan Garcia the fuck out. Then, of course, we have a shit show fight on DAZN from Detroit that I can't imagine who's fucking interested in this. Clarissa Shields versus Franchon Cruz. Then there's a great card for boxing fans. Obviously, another ESPN type of fight card. Emmanuel Navarrete defending his WBO title versus Eduardo Nunez, who's defending his title, his IBF title. That's a great fight. Should be fantastic. Two big punching Mexican fighters. I mean, this fight has to entertain. It's going to be in Arizona, so it's going to be a real Mexican packed crowd. Obviously, two Mexican fighters going head to head for unification, right? And if you want to be consistent and fair, what we want people to do is challenge the best fighters in their divisions or the best fighters around their divisions. And for Navarrete to take on Eduardo Nunez, Sugar Nunez, that's exactly what's happening here. This is a fight people have been asking for quite some time. And the fact that it's actually being done is fantastic because it would have been very disappointing if we didn't get these two sluggers to actually step in the ring with one another. So let's just check out the most card that's happening this upcoming weekend, February 5th. Albert Ramirez is fighting Laron Richards, which is a pretty good fight. Obviously, not the fight anyone's going to talk about. This fight card is happening in Montreal, Canada. And that fight should be really entertaining. Then, of course, you have on the undercard of that Wyatt Sanford, one of the top amateur fighters out of Canada, a guy who won a bronze medal in the last Olympics. And I can't tell you the last time a Canadian actually won an Olympic medal. So the fact that Wyatt Sanford did it, good on him. I'm excited to see what he does moving forward. Then, of course, on the 7th, out of England, this card should be good, at least the main event. Once again, getting some really high level fights. Uh, Nick Ball is going to be defending his WBA title versus Brandon Figueroa. It's a odd fight. Obviously, Figueroa is like 6'1". Nick Ball is like 5'4". So when these guys face off, it's going to be a comic show for sure. But it should be a very entertaining fight. Both guys are really aggressive, hyper aggressive to the most part. So you know it's going to be action packed. It's going to be interesting to see who's more effective stylistically. Obviously, the taller fighter is going to have to get down and hit the smaller fighter. The smaller fighter is going to have to reach up to get to the bigger fighter. So it's going to be an intriguing matchup. Bobby says Ball and Fig fight of the year candidate. Well, it very well should be, right? That's what people would expect. But to be fair, Brandon Figueroa did not look great in his last fight versus Stephen Fulton, right? So we have to see how he bounces back from that. That performance was pretty disappointing. Technique says he will need a fucking stepladder. He will. But what he was saying is he's got a lot of body for me to punch. It's tough for the tall guys to punch down on smaller dudes. But for me, he's got a big target. I'm just going to beat the fuck out of his body and eventually slow him down and stop him. And I can see Nick Ball potentially stopping him. On the undercard, oh, thank you, Bobby. You're a nice guy. Thank you very much. Nice seeing you live. Cheers, buddy. Um, a lot of UK fighters, guys, I'm not familiar with, so I won't really go into depth on that. Obviously, on Paramount, I suppose this must be a PVC card. Effie Ajagba is fighting Charles Martin. To be fair, that's a good fight. Charles Martin, Effie Ajagba, two mid-range, mid-tier heavyweights, both hard punchers. That fight should be pretty entertaining. We'll see who's got more in the gas tank. At this point, you have to favor a Jogba over Martin, but Martin's a dangerous fighter. That fight he had versus Big Baby, I thought he performed really well. Even though obviously he lost the fight, I thought he really showed some issues with Big Baby's defense, which obviously were exploited when he stepped up in his next fight and ended up getting beat. Out of Japan, Nishida is trying to bounce back after his unification loss to Junto Nakatani. He's going to be fighting Brian Mercada Vasquez in a 12-round fight at junior featherweight. Jin Sasaki is bouncing back in an 8-rounder against to be named opponent. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back after getting flatlined for the knockout of the year last year. Martin was a 2-week notice and punches holes in Big Baby. Exactly. Right. So if he comes in mentally and physically fit, he can beat anyone, more or less. And then, of course, the Ryan Garcia card. This fight is obviously a great fight card. You have Andy Hiroka, who's going to try to win a world title at junior welterweight versus Gary Antoine Russell. This is the first fight we've seen Antoine Russell in since he beat Valenzuela in what could only be described as a Manny Pacquiao-esque type of performance. Over 1,000 punches thrown in that fight. That guy was definitely an Energizer bunny in that fight. Fantastic performance. We'll see if he's able to duplicate that performance versus Hiroka. To be fair, Hiroka has never really fought the elite level of fighters. So, people obviously expect him to potentially get beat. If he's going to get Jin Sasaki, we'll have to find out. Richard Hitchens is in with Oscar Duarte. That's a tough matchup, right? And stylistically, it should be really interesting. Duarte's fought really well since his loss to Ryan Garcia. Hitchens obviously has had some really stellar performances, and stylistically, two completely different fighters. Frank Martin is obviously fighting Albright on the undercard as well. Great fight. It's good to see that Frank Martin has uh, rotated so quickly after his last fight, after being out of the ring for so long and not getting any performances or any fights. Now, of course, he's bouncing back with back-to-back fights over a real short period of time. I do expect him to beat Albright, but Albright is obviously a good, rangy, tough fighter. Um, yo, Stringer from above. This Tio win really helped the legacy conversation for Shakur. Oh, fuck. How could it not, right? It was always going to be a great legacy win for whoever won. But to be as dominant as Shakur was, all you can see now is that he is kind of this generation's Floyd Mayweather. Not that that's great for boxing. And I know you have John Boxing and other people moan and groan about that. But the reality is, guys like Floyd and guys like Shakur don't really elevate the sport of boxing to casual fans, right? For hardcore fans, of course, we're going to watch fights. But for casuals, they're not going to see anything that attracts them because it's just not the sensational type of performances that a Mike Tyson, when he was, dominating boxing, was putting on. Obviously, that was heavyweight boxing to begin with. But for Shakur, he's going to be like Floyd. He's going to be the guy people want to see beat, but he's going to keep going out there and frustrating you and end up getting the victories. At the end of the day, he's going to be seen as this generation's probably best fighter, right? Um, Obviously, he needs to add to his resume, but this was his first major legacy fight, and the fact he dominated makes it much better than it would have been if he barely won. Exactly. You think this is a story of Barrios' volume versus Ryan's power? I think it's going to be Mario Barrios' jab versus Ryan Garcia's lack of a jab. And if Barrios can establish a jab, he should win this fight very easily. Obviously, Ryan's dangerous because he's got a fast, explosive left hand, but as long as you stay away from that, what could he do? This was a phenomenal win for Shakur. Phenomenal. Welcome back. Tio is absolutely a horrendous fighter on his front foot. But that's the thing. I was listening to Algeria and them talk today and talking about, well, Tio was at this weight class like the most obvious fighter you could pick who potentially could beat Shakur. I'm like, what? Tio? Like literally everybody knew stylistically once this fight was announced that this was a terrible style matchup for Tio, a counterpuncher. right? Against a better counterpuncher who is just technically a better fighter overall. When I said the comparison of like Canelo fighting Floyd, right? You can't go in there and try to outbox Floyd Mayweather and think that somehow you're going to win the fucking fight, especially if you're Canelo Alvarez. If you're a longer, taller outfighter with a rangy jab and good foot movement, okay, maybe then you could do it. But that's not Tio, who really on fight night was smaller than Shakur, and it wasn't Canelo against Floyd. When they said that, I'm like, do these guys actually even know anything about boxing? And I mean, Chris Algieri was a former world champion, but it's the stupidest take I've heard. Like right now at 140 pounds, easily the most dangerous opponent for for Shakur is not Tio. It would potentially be Russell's volume, right? Volume punchers against counter punchers always cause problems. That's why Zepeda did far better than Lopez did. But then you also have Hitchens, taller, longer, right? Because of his length, he can establish his jab outside of Shakur's range and really frustrate Shakur so that he has trouble establishing his range against the tall, rangy fighter. That's why Floyd Mayweather didn't fight Erislandy Lara or any tall, rangy fighter with a great jab. Because for a counterpuncher, it just was never going to be a great situation. He would have had to be more of a front foot fighter, which would take him away from his comfort zone. So I thought Hitchinson and Russell, both stylistically, more dangerous opponents than Tio. Even the long rangy kid from Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic that was fighting for the WBC title, Puelo. Even Puelo is a much tougher opponent for Shakur than Tio. And this isn't taking Tio away as being a great opponent. He's a great opponent. As far as name recognition, he's better than any of the three fighters that I just mentioned. But as far as stylistic, come on, man, get real. I was surprised how much taller Beosh is than Ryan. Way taller, eh? Tio plateaued as a fighter. He's still only 28. Why not get a new trainer? He's at least got to get somebody else into his camp for sure. The only way I could see Shakur losing would be to someone with Feta style, with bigger and with real power. Tio Senior as a corner just adds more distress. Nothing positive outside of being a rah rah guy. Yeah, pretty much, eh? Tio can't stop a jab. Shit is hilarious. What do you think of Muratala versus Cepeda matchup? That would be a great fight. I would favor Muratala, but I mean, it's a great matchup, right? I mean, I just hope the guys at 135 get it on. Let's get it on. It's easy to say all these guys have a better chance than Tio after seeing how he played out. No, no, no. Like, you tell me. You obviously pay attention to boxing. You watch people's predictions. From day one, when that fight was signed, nobody was favoring Tio because stylistically, we knew Shakur was the wrong style for him. We've seen him with fighters where he had to chase them and looked very bad on multiple occasions. Sandor Martin, fucking what's his face, who just got knocked out by Keyshawn Davis, right? We've seen him struggle with fighters that made him fight against boxers and movers. So yeah, I think everyone pretty much knew stylistically he was not made to beat Shakur. Sean, I hope Keyshawn goes on to fight Devin. Well, I'd like to see him fight maybe Hitchens to win a world title at 140 pounds, right? So he could become a two-weight world champion. Then if he moves up and then challenges Haney to become a three-weight world champion, he's adding those legacy things to his career. I'd rather see Keyshawn and Shakur in the same division since they won't fight, not seed in the same division. Of course, yeah, I get that. I wouldn't mind seeing Shakur versus Devin, but I understand if Shakur wants to stay at 140. Well, I think Shakur will fight anyone as long as the money's right and that it's a big opponent and a big matchup, right? That's why he's talking about fighting Conor Ben. And that would be a big fight. I mean, imagine how much. I mean, I know Conor Ben is not as good a fighter as Tio, and he's not that big. So it's not like he's got a lot of physical advantages over Shakur, and he's got no technical advantages over Shakur at all. I think it's easy work for Shakur, but To build Shakur into a global star, fighting Conor Ben would really push that a lot. Keyshawn versus the winner of Russell Hiroka. That would be great. That's a tough matchup if he has to fight Russell. Do you think if Ryan wins, he will get the Devin Ryan rematch? If Ryan wins, we're either going to get Ryan versus Ben, or we're going to get Ryan versus Devin. Ben is also talking about fighting Rolly Romero. Obviously, he got into a dust up with him in the fight, right? Just in the crowd. So he was chasing big fights. I think the Rolly fight makes way more sense than Shakur. He can become a welterweight world champion, right? And then a potential Ryan Garcia Ben fight would be a unification fight. That would be huge. Makes a lot of sense. Hello, Ninja. Welcome back. God bless all you guys. Jesus Christ is the Lord. You and Nicki Minaj grabbing the stage for the Lord. Um, yeah, but let's look at some of the other fights that are happening in February. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, what happened? Why you jump all the way down? Do, 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 do. Sandy Ryan is fighting. I mean, that's a can't miss matchup for sure. Josh Warrington is getting back in the ring with Lee Wood. That should be a fun fight. Even though they're both UK fighters, these are still two named guys that everybody knows. So it should be a very interesting matchup. Navarrete, Tamir Smalls, Abel Ramos on that card. Emmanuel Vargas is on the card. Arturo Papaco is on the card. Uh, yeah, so a lot of young up and comers. Elijah Pierce is fighting on Renzo Para. That should be a good fight. Amazon Prime fight. Pacquiao versus Manny Pacquiao Jr. is going to be on that card, and Kermel Moton is going to be on that card. So obviously that's a PBC fight card. Jairo Pitaya is going to be fighting, but we don't know against who. James Dickens is fighting Anthony Kakache, which should be a pretty fun fight. Knockout Freshmart versus Awata. That should be a great fight. Freshmart obviously was a long reigning world champion. Now he's going to fight Owata, uh, a really young, up and coming young Japanese fighter. Anthony Olaskagu is already jumping back in the ring after his fantastic performance to defend his WBO title. Nice. Donaire is going to be fighting Rico Masuda, another top young, up and coming Japanese fighter, to try to become a world champion once again. That's good. Itama versus Jamal Franklin should be fun. I thought that fight was canceled. Didn't Itama get hurt or something? Ezra Taylor, Willie Hutchinson, Liam Davis, Zach Miller on the undercards. Deontay Wilder versus Derek Chisora. That fight has been confirmed. That's a great fight. Going to happen, obviously, in the UK, London, on DAZN. It's on DAZN. I think that fight will be very entertaining. Obviously, Wilder's dangerous. Him and Chisora, both big talkers. I got Chisora knocking Wilder out inside four. If Hiroka wins, do you think John Boxing becomes a fan? If Hiroka wins and beats Gary Russell, uh, Gary Russell was overrated. Hiroka has no resume. Hiroka's half black. That's the only reason as a Japanese fighter he's any good, right? Well, you can only imagine the narratives that come out of John's mouth. He's going to say the black side makes him great. Oh, there you go. I didn't even read the second part of your comment, but exactly. John doesn't know that he's half black. Otherwise, that would probably be the one Japanese fighter he would be fucking fanboying for, right, John? Because I know you're listening. That's funny. We're both thinking the same thing. Uh, then, of course, we have the huge Netflix fight Tyson Fury versus Aslanbek Makhmudov, the Battle of the Giants. It's good to see Netflix putting out another big matchup. That fight's obviously going to do well. Fury is well known in the US, he's well known in the UK, he's a global figure, obviously, with his Netflix TV show, family show that was on. So, yeah, obviously that stuff's happening in April, but nonetheless, even though he used to claim Inui one of his favorite fighters. Well, he didn't say one of his favorite fighters. He literally said Inui was his favorite fighter. The guy who cracks his neck. Yeah, that's a huge fucking tick that Makhmudov has, right? That guy looks like totally fucking. If they make a new Frankenstein movie, they should just typecast that dude into that role. You don't even need to use fucking makeup. He fills that role perfectly. Um, well, you know John. John just made a video recently, I mean today, criticizing Junto Nakatani again. And the irony is now he's trying to use uh, Shakur's resume, talking about how it's better than Junto. Yeah, because he just beat Tio. Prior to him beating Tio, what was the great win on Shakur's resume? Shakur literally is a three-weight world champion, but the 126-pound title was vacant. The 135-pound title was vacant. The only time he beat real champions was at 130 when he beat Herring and Valdez. Two world champions that he beat. Pascal obviously has recently become a champion, so that's three champions he's beaten in his career. Three, only three. But we're going to shit on Junto, who's fought almost 10 world champion. I think eight that he's beaten to become a three-weight world champion, right? But of course, beating champions doesn't mean anything because you don't know who they are. So they're insignificant. But who the fuck is Valdez and Jamal Herring? Because those are the only two champions he beat to win titles. And the irony is when he does this kind of narrative, how come he never holds Clarissa Shields to that same criticism? Because who has she fought that fucking anybody knows? She won most of her titles off of vacant titles, right? So he hypes her up because she's been four-weight undisputed champion. So it's this complete moving of the goalposts from guys like him. No surprise. Dave Allen almost beat him. Fury has a herky jerky Makhmudov with the ticks. Fury should beat Makhmudov easy. He should. Sean, did you even come across John Boxing? How did it all start? John responding to my videos like so many of those LDBC guys used to, getting bent out of their shape because I liked who I liked and I didn't like who they liked. And somehow it's okay for them to have a bias towards a certain fighter, but for me to do that meant I was racist, right? And that's where my kickback came. If you want to support all black fighters, cool. Then if I want to support all non-black fighters, why is it getting on your tits? What's the difference? There is no difference. Everybody can have their own opinion and their own fucking favorite fighters or athletes that they want to watch. It don't need to be black fucking American fighters. I don't need to like the fighters you like, just like you don't like need to like the guys I like. But I don't go to my way hating on fighters that you like every single fucking video. Usyk, Inui, Bivol, Bam, Shakur, my top five. Ah, yes. I slid Usyk to number two now. So Inui is now number one on my list. So it's Inui, Usyk, Bivol, Bam, and Shakur, my top five. And as I said earlier, I won't be surprised if by the end of 2026, Shakur is seen as pound for pound number one and consistently seen as pound for pound number one for the ongoing future. He's that good of a fighter. But I don't need to fucking hate on him and try to dismiss him and downplay him and not give him credit. His victory versus Tio, you could be critical of Tio on certain aspects because people love to hate on certain fighters. If somebody else, not named Shakur, had beaten Tio, you know that people would be critical of it. They'd be dismissing him and downplaying it. You know it, I know it. But because Shakur did it, of course, they're going to look past any of this stuff and use it to hype Tio up, right? And you should, oh, sorry, hype Shakur up. It's like when John praises Lomachenko when he wants to elevate Haney to pound for pound number two. Then Lomachenko is pound for pound. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's so great. But yet you literally made videos shitting on him for 10 years, dismissing and downplaying him and hoping for his fucking loss fight after fight after fight. But now because you want to use him to hype up Haney, you look past everything you've said for 10 years, right? Hypocrite, hypocrite. Valdez and Herring are good wins. I'll give it to him. Well, they're good wins, but are they great wins? What's the best win Jamal Herring has? I couldn't even name it. And what's the best win Valdez has? I couldn't even name it. I don't know who the best guy Valdez or Herring beat off the top of my head, right? I know those were the two best wins that Shakur had because those were the only champions he'd beaten. But are these better wins than what Inui's done, or what Junto Nakatani has done, or what Bam Rodriguez has done? I literally heard him discredit Bam on his pound for pound list because most of the guys he's beaten that were well known were old. So you're going to criticize Bam and downplay his resume because the fighters are old. But yet, all the good wins that Devin Haney has outside of Brian Norman are old. Ramirez, Prograis, Lomachenko, Gamboa, Petraza, oh, sorry, not Petraza, Linares, Jojo Diaz, all fucking old, right? But this again, once again, hypocrites, twisting narratives. I'm Team Active Squad, Shakur, Keyshawn, and Bud over everybody. Team Active Squad, what's that? Well, Bud's retired, so he ain't beating anybody. But I do think Keyshawn is great. But based on this weekend, if we're going to talk about pound for pound, I have to put Shakur over Keyshawn, uh, even future wise. Tank knew not to fight him. Tank knew. Tank knew he'd fucking get his ass embarrassed. Shakur is the future of boxing at this point. And that's, as I said earlier, kind of a bad thing. Because like Floyd, who killed boxing, Shakur is kind of similar. He's not going to bring casual fans to the sport because nobody's going to be intrigued to watch him stylistically beat guys the way he does, right? You can all recognize that he's the best at a certain point, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be excited to watch him fight. What makes fights exciting is when guys are not leaps and bounds better than their opponents, when it's competitive, 50-50 fights, which make for far more entertaining, exciting fights. If you're going to have Shakur do what he did to Teo to everybody he fights over the next 5 years, at the end of the day, we're going to be able to say he's pound for pound number one and the best of the generation. But once again, you're going to have no fights that you're excited to rewatch, no fights that you fucking are going to brag about because stylistically, there's not going to be any fights that are like pay per view, fan friendly. And John will say people are hating on Shakur already. No, not hating. How can you say the guy's potentially pound for pound number one in the world and the best fighter of the generation? And just be honest, competitive fights are more entertaining than fucking lopsided victories. Like, isn't that obvious? I'd rather watch a basketball game that was competitive down to the wire as opposed to a team blow another team up by 50 fucking points and then sit there and go, oh, yeah, you can't be critical because you got to enjoy the greatness. No, it was boring. And I turned it off after 3 quarters because there was nothing to fucking watch. That's just the way it is. That's reality. Uh, Anui got to, oh no, he jumped ahead. Uh, oh. Hey, Sean, do you think is the best fight predictor? Well, I have no idea. Tank knew not to fight him. I knew he got to being an absolute number one by being an absolute offensive machine, in my opinion. That's why it's more impressive. Well, to go out there and destroy opponents, you take risks, you get touched, and that makes for exciting fights, exciting conclusions, and obviously you are not doing what potentially would make fights easier for you. You're doing what makes fights more exciting. That's why you become a bigger star in the sport. People love Mike Tyson, not that he was going in there winning fights 12-0 and not getting touched. No, they loved him because he went in there and fucking buzzsaw motherfuckers and got them out quick. Roach is Herring's best win. Ah, and that only aged now well, right? Because now he's got two draws back to back. I still can't find one video analysis on how Haney beat Lomachenko. Yeah, there is none. He's black like me. That's why he won. With John boxing, a fighter trash until his favorite fighter beats them. That's when they become great wins. Exactly. Bam just beat Martinez, who beat Ioka twice. But to be fair, John don't know who Puma Martinez is, and he don't know who fucking Ioka is. He would shit on Ioka because he's Japanese, so he must be garbage. Even though he was a four-weight world champion. Shakur definitely over Haney. Oh fuck, definitely over Haney. I've been saying this from day one. Devin Haney is not as good as Shakur Stevenson. Never has been. The only fight of the Shakur that I could rewatch are Tio Zapata and the Herring fights. Devin arguably has losses. I would like the Shakur versus the Japanese fighter. That's the only fight I could really rewatch again and again. It's kind of like Floyd Mayweather's Corrales fight. Devin arguably has losses. He's not the future of the sport. No. Are you pushing the narrative Benavidez is ducking Opataya? What? Once again, you coming out here pushing bullshit. You're the one obviously pushing the narrative. We will see if Benavidez is ducking Opataya if when he beats Zerdo, he goes down to 175, or if he tries to unify versus Opataya. If he tries to unify, then the answer is obviously not. If he does whatever he can to not unify versus Opataya, then probably the answer is completely yes. When Inui wants to box and completely dominate, he can also do it. Well, we saw that against fucking MJ Akhmedov, an Olympic medalist, who literally he went in there and tied his hands up, and the only punch MJ landed was in the 12th round, when obviously Inui was, losing his focus a bit because the fight was over. Outside of that, he dominated him, didn't get hit at all, completely dominated the fight. But you think guys like John praised him for that? No, they criticized him. Oh, he couldn't knock him out. Couldn't knock him out. Okay. Shakur fucking couldn't knock out Tio, and Haney can't knock out anyone. So how does that logic mean anything? Why didn't American Glazers praise and suck off Cambosis when he beat Tio like they do with Shakur? Well, they never had faith in Cambosis. Just like John hypes up Cambosis as a great win for Haney, but literally shits on it as a fucking victory for Lomachenko. Where does Shakur rank now, Sean? He's number 5 on my list because he just moved up. But obviously, Anui and Usyk are probably only going to fight to the end of 2026, which means then you have Bivol, who's coming off of back surgery, and Bam in front of you. So I could easily see it being a battle between Bam and Shakur for number 1 at the beginning of 2027. Since Zuffa is allowing Jai to cross promote, I hope they do the same with other Zuffa fighters. Well, I just listened to an interview today, and he said that, yeah, that's not an issue. LB, LDBC Logic Tank can do whatever we want. Crawford, Inui, and Usyk can't. Well, that's so many fanboy fucking boxing fans, right? I'm consistent. I said Canelo can do what he wants, and then I said Crawford can do what he wants. Lomachenko at this point can do what he wants, right? They've all earned that certain amount of, freedom. Fax and Campbell did it first, and that blood that Shakur drew was probably from scar tissue Campos' left. Billionaire elites are sick. In the files, they were eating kids. Sick man. Huh? Billionaire elites are sick. In the files, they were eating kids. Sick man. What files? I'm hearing certain channels saying Shushu will beat Anui. Well, that's what John just said, right? More or less. Shushu's 28 years old, has a terrible resume. Even Castro, we just beat now. Literally, John will put him on pound for pound number 1 if he beats any of the other champions and unifies, right? He'll be pound for pound because he's black. But yet his resume is garbage. He's 28 years old, and Top Rank did to him what PBC did to Boots Ennis, right? Had them up until 28 years old, protected, fighting real low level opposition. I mean, I think he doesn't want to fight Espinoza because I think Espinoza will beat him, probably stop him. Loma would have fought Shakur. He probably would have beaten him. But the thing is, he would have been afraid of a robbery. Even if Loma lost to Shakur, I think he would have made it a great fight. And it would have been a great legacy fight. You don't always need to win a fight for it to be a great legacy fight, as we've seen. When people talk about Hagler, Leonard, Hearns, and Duran, they talk about the losses as much as they talk about the wins, right? Like most people don't even talk about Hagler losing to Leonard, right? A middleweight losing to a welterweight who's been retired for 3 or 4 years. They don't talk about that. They don't try to shade Hagler with this kind of narrative, which of course today, I mean, John would shade Golovkin because he fought fucking what's his face, Kel Brook. But Kel Brook wasn't retired for fucking 3 or 4 years, right? Uh Epstein files. Is that what what's her face was talking about them eating? We've always heard those rumors, blood sacrifices and rituals, basically selling their souls for fame and fortune. So it's nothing different. It's nothing different. It's stuff we've heard for years and years. So I'm not surprised. Haney versus Shakur would be dope, but I think Shakur has it. Oh man, Shakur has that. He's got that on Haney. Uh, just imagine, you know, he's going to do what Lomachenko did, but in a more defensive manner. But he's still going to hit Devin Haney with those straight shots right down the middle. He's still going to take away Devin Haney's jab, like Lomachenko did, and out jab him, right, from the southpaw position, right? And Loma's smaller than fucking Shakur is. And if Loma could time Devin Haney's jab and out jab the longer, taller outboxer, Shakur is going to fucking dominate Haney with his jab and then just hit him with straight shots right down the pipe. Double Amendia official, I would write Haney off. Once the new sleeps, Shushu John still pretends like it didn't happen, like he does Fulton. Exactly. He will say that, well, Shushu hadn't beaten anyone, it was, he was too young. There's always going to be excuses because guys like John just don't want to give non-black fighters any fucking credit. It's like Jamal Mashburn. You guys know Jamal Mashburn? Jamal Mashburn just came out on some radio show and said that the top five guys in this year's upcoming draft, Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, what's his face, North Carolina Duke kid. His dad played at Duke. What the fuck? Boozer, the guy from North Carolina, the young jumper, and then I don't know who the fifth guy was, but he said all five of those guys would go ahead of Cooper Flag in the draft if Cooper Flag hadn't went early, right? It's like, what? Cooper Flag just scored 49 fucking points. And then he followed that up the next game with 34. Right now he's averaging 22, 23 points a game, number one score out of all rookies. And this is a good rookie crop of players. You can see that because of how well they're playing. And then this is typical. They're going to dismiss him like they did to start the year. It was filmed in the desert. What? We didn't land on the moon. I don't think so. I think moon landing was fake as fuck. Remember when Southpaw said, and we ducking Moten? So many of those guys said that. And Moten's still fighting nobodies because he's still a kid. Not, we definitely landed, in my opinion, Prime Shakur versus Prime Loma, super featherweight versus welterweight, and would still be competitive. Americans glazing is real. Yeah. It was filmed in the desert. John Boxing has the same huh, IQ level as most of Nigeria. Yes, I saw that. Conspiracy minded freaks are ridiculous people. Mashburn was a good player. I remember him. Good player. Kentucky. How did we lose the telemetry data of the greatest accomplishment in American history? Exactly. There's a bunch of questions that could easily be fucking answered by NASA if it was true. But I'm sure they sent rockets into space. I just don't think they sent rockets to land on the moon. But that's just my opinion. People can disagree. Think about that. If we could do that in 1969, 1970, How come for 5 generations afterwards we haven't been able to do it again? Right? It's so easy, but we couldn't do it because you needed a rocket to get out of fucking out of the blah 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 blah, right? And when you land on the moon, you no longer have those rockets to propel you out, and that's the issue. They don't have enough power, enough fuel to get those ships fucking back into space, especially that little fucking pod. How much fucking fuel could that thing carry? Man, come on. You talk about the ones now that are more like airplanes. You can see that those would be more fundamentally be able to land, take off, and potentially work out. Van Allen radiation belt. I'm not sure. Russian would have exposed it if it was fake. Well, I'm sure there's stuff they could hold against Russia too. We know Russia never landed on the moon, but what they did do was stay in space centers far longer than the Americans did. So in truth, the Russians probably won the space battle. So it was all like a shit show, bullshit. But who cares? At the end of the day, what the fuck is there on the moon that we want anyways? It's just a rock in the sky. I hear they have great condos for sale. What are the odds for Thurman versus Funduro actually make it to the fight on March 29? Well, that's the thing, right? With fucking Thurman. Man, like I will laugh so hard if he pulls out again because of injury. It's just like, this is what you get. You deserve this. Because once again, the PBC is trying to jam some bullshit fight card down our throats that nobody's interested in. Nobody wants to see Funduro fight Keith fucking Thurman. Like if Thurman was going to fight Errol Spence, okay, hmm, that one I might be excited about. Both are old and past it, both at the same level. But we want to see them fight for a world title. I want to see Thurman and Spence fight for a world title about as much as I want to see Pacquiao fight for a world title. And I love Pacquiao. Some of these Americans are so pathetic with their overhyping their fighters. Tio is a good win, but come on, he lost to Cambosis and almost got knocked out by one arm Lomachenko from Hard Recoil comment section. Oh, Jag. I've never thought I'd say this, but I want to see Shakur versus Haney. Dudes watch two stupid videos on YouTube and are suddenly experts in space missions. I saw the space landing live in my school, in elementary school. So I was there firsthand. Uh, the world stopped when that happened. Everyone was on TV watching that shit. That shit, like in school, literally, that was the biggest thing happening. Literally, every classroom was watching that on TVs, and that was like early on. And then, of course, we end up having the space shuttle fly over our school in junior high school. We were all outside in the field waiting for that exact time when the airplane flew over with the space shuttle on top. And that was just a space shuttle flying over our school in Canada. Moon landing was small. That would mean all three of them sat down in the main straining, uncomfortable pod. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see that shit happening. That thing's as big as a fucking Volkswagen bug. And you're going to be like in that thing for how long? Yeah. Explain the science behind that to me, the physics. I would love to see one of the people from NASA explain how that little fucking ship blew out of fucking off the moon and then flew all the way. I know you don't need much energy once you get to space, but just getting off the ground, I don't believe it. But whatever, doesn't matter. So let's talk about that Zuffa card. Did any of you guys watch it? I disappointedly was at work, so I could not watch it, which was a shame. Out of all the fight cards I called this weekend, that was probably my best one. Well, actually, I guess that wasn't. Two of the ones I called were wrong. I picked Budayev to beat Sergey Bolchak. Bolchak ended up winning the split decision. I picked Jose Valenzuela to win over Nunez, so I got that right. And I had Vosdik beating Kalajic. Who could have imagined that Kalajic would have knocked out Vosdik? How does that make David Benavidez' victory look, right? Kalajic, who gave Morel a tough fight, did to Vosdik what fucking Benavidez was unable to do. Benavidez wasn't able to fucking knock that guy out. Whereas Kalajic, not a hard puncher, uh, more of a defense, awkward fighter who just makes fights ugly, was able to do what David Benavidez couldn't. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. The original Apollo 11 astronauts were burned alive because they didn't want to fake the moon landing. Moon only has around 16% of Earth's gravitational pull. Did you see Wilder claim that white supremacy and white privilege were factors in his losses to Fury, alleging the referee is the first fight gave Fury extended count, that Fury cheated in rematch? I heard him talk about being a black man in the sit down with Chisora. And that's why these guys all love him, because he's as fucking delusional as they are. You got beat because stylistically, you were never technically fucking better than Fury. Never. All you could hope for was to land a big punch. And in three of the fights, you landed big punches, but you still ended up fucking losing all three fights. Zuffa was entertaining. I watched it and went to work 3 hours later with almost no sleep. No man can sit in that position for 19 hours and hop out of the ship comfortably, right, Sean? Fuck, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to stand up after that fucking long in that in that cramped position. I was trying to crawl into school van today to take the kids to the park, and I could barely fucking crawl into that. I can't imagine fucking that capsule. Uh, Joel Hackett got a good victory, even though once again he didn't look good. Ended up getting a fucking majority decision over Roberto Cruz Jr. Once again, Jalil Hackett, a guy that guys like John were talking about, the future of boxing. Justin Valoria, he ended up winning as the underdog. I didn't see the fight, but Valoria, obviously related to the great fighter that Roman Gonzalez beat. Now 11-0, lightweight fighter. Where are we? If black man wins, it's black superiority. If he loses, it's white privilege. Exactly, and that's all I've been saying for years. The whole race card shit, like that shit gets pulled fucking all the time, and it's like fucking. Aren't you sick of that? Aren't you sick of being a cringe fucking crybaby, blaming everyone else for your fucking failures? Like Morgan Freeman went on to a fucking show years ago and said, get fucking real. There's nothing a black man in modern America can't do that a white man can do. It's just a matter of him fucking being focused and working hard enough to fucking succeed. And when we look at all these great athletes that have been successful, these musicians and these actors, black culture now is doing more now than it's ever fucking done. But yet there's more negativity being pushed now than there was when I was a kid. There wasn't this much fucking hate and negativity pushed when I was a kid. Race wasn't fucking something that people supported. We all fucking supported black American athletes, and there was no fucking race issue going back and forth at all. But until social media came, and then of course people started using that to create this shit. And then of course Obama got elected. I mean, Obama shows you black man can do fucking anything. The guy became a president. Who do you think fucking voted for Obama? Only black people? Like, what, are you fucking mental? Obama won clearly. And he won because white people, Latino people, black people, Asian people all fucking voted for him. But now everyone's racist. So millions and millions of people that voted for Obama now are fucking racist. What? What? This is a problem with this kind of cringe-worthy fucking mentality. Blaming everyone else because you're fucking a failure. Just own it. You're a failure. Scream it from the rooftops. People prepared for years and they landed on something has significantly less gravitational force. It doesn't need to look pretty, it just needed to work. They prepared for years how to stage it. The videos show no stars. That's a wrap. Well, it totally looks like that now. When you think about that shit in today's modern fucking situation, that shit looks like it couldn't fucking even go through uh, extreme conditions. But once again, it doesn't matter. The fact that people question it, people should question. You should question everything. The moon landing clearly looks like a kid's arts and crafts project. It never worked. Laughed my ass out. Do you know how camera works? You think the people in NASA wouldn't think it put stars in the background of the movie set? Pathetic logic. Well, they didn't put stars in the movie set and they didn't put stars on the moon. So, gotta ask yourself once again. I mean, don't you think that would have been something you would have looked at? Look at the sky, look at the Milky Way from the moon, right? Wouldn't that be something that would be interesting as opposed to look at a bunch of fucking rocks? I mean, the moon landing. I mean, the world's flat after all. So, I mean, the original moon landing footage. Carlos Adamus and Janabek need to go to 168 at this point. Well, middleweight needs some fucking something to happen. Carlos Adamus pulling out of that fight, terrible, terrible. But to see how fucking Williams fought, would that fight have really been that interesting? I think Adamus would have fucking knocked his ass out inside 8 rounds. Ammo overrated, not fucking that good. You can't see stars because of the clouds. Hollow, you actually pulled that out of nowhere. The moon is extremely bright luminary. No man's eyes can survive that light up close, even with a visor. You can't see stars because of camp camera settings. No, I didn't. The inverse square formula shows how bright something is based on the distance. Look at you guys. What is this? Fucking science fair? Science class? But thanks everyone for jumping in. I'm gonna chillax, enjoy the rest of my evening before I have to go back to work tomorrow. So have a good one. Obviously, I'll be talking to you guys later this week. Stay tuned. And remember, hey, hype up a motherfucker's video, right? Hit that hype button. Hype, hype, hype. It can only help my channel. Thanks everyone for jumping in. I will see you next time. Peace out. Enjoy your evening. And till next we meet. Later.